Welcome to Duke Devil 95. My name is Brad Burnett, and today I'm talking about Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Is it a crit hit or a crit miss? Let's find out. So a little bit of background about me and Dungeons & Dragons. I started playing D in 1983. I bought the red box set that came out around then and still have 5 of the original 6 dice that came with that set. Don't know where the D6 went, but these others have been hanging around with me for almost 40 years now and pretty decent shape for 40 years. I played D&D in high school, some other role-playing games at the same time, played into college, ran a few D&D campaigns while I was in college, ran the gaming group as well. So I've been a fan of role-playing games for a long time. Truthfully, I have not played in almost 25 years because it's sometimes difficult to find a good group to play with. But I saw the movie coming out, knowing what I know about Dungeons & Dragons, I was kind of interested. But at the same time, there were some questions that were out there lingering for me. First off, D&D does not have a good history of movies. I've seen some of them before, and they are just, crap. Flat out, not good. The trailers. The trailers didn't look so good. There was nothing exciting. Nothing caught my attention right away. So it didn't compel me to go watch. The other thing I had in mind was, is this going to translate well for everyone? Is it going to be too focused on D&D itself so that regular people won't understand what's going on? Last night, I happened to get a chance to go see it, and I got 2 takeaways from it. First off, I have to remember that my girlfriend starts to get sleepy a little bit after 9, so nighttime movies probably not a good idea for us. But the second thing I take away is that, you know what? It's actually a fun movie. It's just a fun fantasy movie that I think everyone can enjoy, regardless of your knowledge of Dungeons & Dragons or not. So, what's it all about? The Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves takes place in a place called Faerun. It's a Dungeons & Dragons setting, also known as the Forgotten Realms. It's a fantasy setting. You don't have to know the history of it or anything to just appreciate that it's a fantasy setting. Just the same way that if you're not familiar with anything from Lord of the Rings, you can figure out what the Shire is. So that's just a fantasy setting. Who is our adventuring party? Who are our player characters in this story? Chris Pine plays Edgin. He's a human bard who was once a member of the Harpers. The Harpers was a secret group that was involved in maintaining peace and justice in the Forgotten Realms. When his wife is killed, he becomes a thief. Michelle Rodriguez plays Holga. She is a barbarian who was kicked out of her tribe because she fell in love with someone who's not a member of the tribe. She's a longtime friend of Edgin's and eventually becomes a thief with him. Justice Smith plays Simon. That's a half-elf sorcerer. He's descended from a long line of wizards, but he is not so skillful in the use of magic. The last person rounding out our adventuring party is Doric, played by Sophia Lillis. She is a tiefling. A tiefling is a demon-human hybrid. They got horns and a tail. She's a druid, and she has the ability to shapeshift into a variety of animals. Who are the bad guys in this adventure? Hugh Grant plays Forge Fitzwilliam. Forge is con man. He was formerly a member of Egan's thieving party, and he's since become Lord of Neverwinter, a very prominent city in Faerun. He's using that position to gain all sorts of wealth and power. Daisy Head plays a character named Sophina. She's a wizard. She's a member of the Red Wizards of Thay, an evil group of magic users. Think Sith in any Star Wars movie. She's allied herself with Forge, but her plans are very different than Forge's. Lastly, we have to talk about our NPCs, non-player characters. These are the ones who appear along the way that provide context to some of the story and maybe some help to our adventurers. Roger Jean Page plays Zenk Yendar. He's a paladin who has a great amount of skill, and he shows up to help the adventurers along their quest. Lastly, Kira is Egan's daughter, and that is played by Chloe Coleman. She comes under the care of Forge, and eventually his negative influence as well. So those are all the characters we have. What is the adventure itself about? The movie opens in a frozen tundra. There's a prison there, and that's where we find Edgin and Holga. They're been in prison for some time, and while they're there, we get some backstory as to how they got there. As I indicated earlier, Edgin was working as Harper. and at some point he helped capture a red wizard. In revenge for that wizard being captured, they killed his wife, but his young daughter Kira was left alive. She was hidden away and she was not killed. But after his wife's death, Egan becomes very depressed, spends most of the time drunk, and not really caring for his daughter. Eventually, Holga comes around and helps out and becomes a surrogate mother for Kira. Together, they decide to make lives as thieves to support themselves and to support Kira. Kira actually joins them as well eventually. So she's got a life as a thief as well. Simon and Forge join up the Egan's thieving party, and then Forge brings in Sofina, a wizard he knows who he thinks can help. They decide to break into a Harper facility. In there's a resurrection tablet, which Edgin wants to use to bring his wife back to life. While they're in there, Edgin and Holgo get captured and sentenced to prison. The other members of the party are able to escape. So back to the frozen tundra prison. It's 2 years they've been in prison and they're having a parole hearing. They use that opportunity to escape. Eventually, Edgin and Holga make it back to civilization and their way to Neverwinter, which is a city in the Forgotten Realms. They find out that Forge has become lord of the city. They also learn that he's been taking care of Kira. So they go to meet with him. Egan has a cold welcome from his daughter. And it turns out the reason is that Forge has been telling Kira that her father went to jail because he was more concerned about treasure and money than he was about her. So she now doesn't like her dad. Egan and Olga learn that Forge actually planned their capture with the help of Safina. And not only does he like, becoming Lord of Neverwinter, he enjoys now being a father to Kira. So he doesn't want them around at all. He sends him off to be executed, but unfortunately, Edgin and Holga escape. Once outside the city, Edgin decides that, they're going to rob Forge, take revenge, and eventually get Kira back and free from Forge's influence. But to do so, they're going to need some help. So they go to recruit Simon. Simon has been, kind of, barely making his way by, doing magic shows, and he's still, not a very good wizard. Simon suggested they recruit another person. That's Doric, the tiefling, former romantic interest of Simon. She's part of a group that has been opposing all the actions that Forge has been doing, expanding Neverwinter and just taking over various sections of the realm. So now that the party's all together, they're able to embark on a series of side quests to gather the necessary items and equipment they need to complete their ultimate quest, which is to get revenge against Ford, steal his treasure, and rescue Kira. Overall, like I said, this was a fun movie for me. Had some good laughs, some good action. There's nothing monumental about it. There's nothing, hugely significant or earth-shattering. It's just an enjoyable action fantasy comedy. And most importantly, it's not woke. There's a lot of indications from the screenwriters when they said we're all about emasculating males. That's not that way. The fact of the matter is, Chris Pine's character is a bard. Bards are not known for fighting or anything like that. So him being sort of a guy who gets by luck, which he does a pretty good job. I got to say, I liked the way Chris Pine played the role of the hapless bard who just has a lot of luck. I think he was channeling another of the Hollywood Chris's, Chris Pratt. It's like a fantasy version of Star-Lord. He's got a good heart. He wants to do good ultimately, but he's a bit of a thief, has some bad traits, and not a lot of skill. But he does good with it. Michelle Rodriguez, is she being girl power? No, I don't think she is. She's playing, a tough character, but Michelle Rodriguez always plays tough characters. She's a barbarian. They're the muscle of the group. So there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion, having played, D&D for years. Hugh Grant. I like Hugh Grant as an over-the-top, campy bad guy. If he was being the serious villain of this movie, it wouldn't work. But, he's a con man. He's a conniver. And he's just throwing himself fully into the role, being wacky and crazy. And it's kind of fun. So I'm okay with the way Hugh Grant did that. The last one I really liked was Regé Jean Page playing Zenk. Fact is, he is too perfect. Absolutely. He's far more skillful than the entire adventuring party. And they know it. Like, can you be with us forever? And if you've played any RPGs before, you know what this is about. This is a DM throwing in an NPC to help low-level players get to their next mission. When Egan goes to retrieve a magic item, they are far too skill level to succeed. That's why we have our OP NPC there. So, I'm okay with the way he did it. And it was really nice. It's just like he walked around and had an aura of majesty to him. It was funny. There are a lot of good nods to D&D players. Some of the places we hear about: Icewind Dale, Neverwinter, Baldur's Gate, the Sword Coast. You play in D&D, you know what those places are. We get some classic monsters. We get a Displacer Beast, which is really interesting to see. I thought was pretty well done. We get the Mimic, imitating the Treasure Chest classic version, and the Owlbear. The Owlbear is really cool. There's a nice scene at the end, which is reminiscent of the Hulk in Avengers, which is kind of funny. Spells. One of the things I really liked about the way they displayed spells is that they addressed components being used. You have verbal, you have physical items, and you have materials, physical manifestations and materials. So you got to combine all these things. So there are times where Simon is trying to use a spell, but let's say he can't talk, so he can't verbalize it, he can't use it, or he can't, manifest his hands to do whatever motion creates a spell. I like that. The spells are used a little too much. They don't really recognize the rules, but I think that's done for dramatic purposes. You can't, be waiting around for a player to recharge his spell slots when you only have a 2-hour movie. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. One of the fun scenes is the Speak with Dead spell. It's having seen that and seen it played out many times in role-playing games, it can be a chance for a DM to just have a lot of fun with the party. You get 5 questions to ask a dead body, and if you ask those 5 questions, that's it. No more questions. And if you screw it up, you're done. And that's exactly what happens in the movie. Like I say, it's very reminiscent of an actual D&D game for me, and brought me back, and I enjoyed that. Again, I enjoyed that as a D&D player. A non-D&D player is going to enjoy the humor of all they have to go through to try to get the information. So overall, like I say, in the end, it's a fun movie. There are laughs in it. Generally, the characters are likable. I would definitely say it's better than Ant-Man or Shazam. My place it maybe is, 3.5 out of 5 stars. Young kids can see it. There's nothing, overly offensive. And most importantly, it's not woke. So it's not a crit hit. It's not a crit miss, but it makes its die roll. So questions, comments, witticisms down below. Click like, click subscribe, click share, and I'll see you later.